Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience. One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build With ICF Podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss, and she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build With ICF Podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt. Yeah.
All right, episode
21.
Yes.
Right back at it.
Yeah.
I remembered that without writing it down this time. I didn't even have to write down what episode it was. I'm super impressed with myself.
That's only because we recorded this morning. You had to look it
It's
up.
only been a couple hours since we recorded 20, so it was easy for me to remember that spot. But
This is a hectic week. We said it on the podcast this morning where we've got like 3 or 4 or 5 podcasts to record this week, which is going to be kind of cool. And
yeah, it's good to get ahead of it and get some things. We've had just so many great requests from people. I mean, obviously this whole thing's driven by customer request, or listener request wanting, different information about different things. So it makes it really easy to determine who we're going to have on, because then I just call people and say, hey, just like Matt today, I'm like, hey, I got people asking about this product. I need you to come on here and talk about it. This is, educate everybody on these products. So it's made it pretty easy. My list is pretty much given to me, and then I just got to make the calls and set up the times at work. So today we've got Matt Knorr on with us from Bailey Metal Products. Previously, where we a lot of people know you from in the industry. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people here have probably already know you through trade shows and Facebook groups and different things. And you've really been the promoter of iSpan, has been the brand that we're most familiar with. But you're going to explain a little bit about that, about some of the changes, exciting changes through iSpan and different things. But Matt, thank you for being on today. I know this was jamming some stuff in. We all are pretty busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Let's go forward with the presentation here. So I've been with iSpan since 2016. It's a cold rolled steel floor joist. There's 2 different versions of it. In February of this year, they were bought out by Bailey Metal Products out of Canada. They are the largest producer of cold rolled steel studs, non-load bearing and structural steel studs in Canada. They're similar to like what Clark Dietrich is here in the States. And they were actually selling coil to iSpan and put an offer in to buy them. And now we're moving forward with Bailey being, the owner, and it's still iSpan, Composite TotalJoist. TotalJoist is still the same great product, still has all the code approvals like we had before.
So they didn't change anything. They're not really looking to change the product. They're just acquisition of a new company or mother company. Basically, just probably like most situations, gives you a little bigger checkbook, a little bigger company to reach out to people, and a little more bandwidth.
Yeah, exactly. Now with Bailey being involved, we have more coil available. I know, in 2020, 2021, it was hard to kind of get materials, and everyone was having a hard time doing that. Now that we have, the pockets behind Bailey Metals, we never will have a problem with that. Our prices I've seen go down since the acquisition, just on the sheer volume of the, purchasing power of Bailey Metals in general.
That's awesome.
That makes sense. Just bringing it kind of all under one roof and kind of offering more products from the parent company itself. Right?
Well, we all saw problems in supply chain. Everybody, it wasn't just our industry. It was every industry saw pains, and during the lovely COVID days where everybody was fighting over different things. And it only takes one thing. It was interesting. I remember being in the ICF game, and at that time going through that, and we could pump out as many blocks as we wanted, but then all of a sudden our web manufacturer was gone, didn't have web polypropylene. And it was like, all of a sudden, what do you do when you don't have, we didn't have control over that, right? So the bigger the company that controls more of that, like you said, when you're a smaller company, you're waiting on another company to provide roles, for you. Now it's all in house and it's more control, quality control goes up, all that stuff. So that sounds like it should be a really, really good move for you. So one question, let's back up a little bit because we've talked about, we actually have everybody from experienced installer, general contractors, commercial guys. I mean, there's a lot of different listeners on here, down to the DIY guys. And I would say a lot of the people that are really taking the information out of this are people that are kind of new to it. Can you kind of give us a basic, kind of the 101 of explaining what the products are that you sell and how they work in with the ICF industry?
So iSpan has two different joist lines. They're Composite TotalJoist and their TotalJoist is what they're called. Same joist, just utilized differently. So the composite system has a welded joist shoe on the end. It sits on top, the 3 inches below the finished floor wall. And once you integrate a dovetail deck on the top of the joist and pour 3 to 4 inches of concrete on top, depending on your preference, you're able to turn that bottom cord bearing joist into a top cord bearing joist. So our bread and butter spans, we're looking at 4 foot on center spacing up to 25, 26 feet at a 4 foot on center spacing.
Wow. So giving people the ability to put a concrete floor on a second level on a, or even the first level with a crawl or anything, being able to utilize concrete. Cause that is a big thing of, people making that commitment to go ICF. And now they're like, all right, now how do I get a radiant floor concrete system, integrated into this? And there's so many, and we've talked about a few just in passing because we've had, Bill Blocker, Anvik on, and different people that make, different systems and stuff. And there's just some certain systems or certain applications that I think you guys just tend to work better than trying to deal with some of those bigger, bulkier systems.
Well, and that's what's nice about the composite TotalJoist and the TotalJoist line. I can move forward with the TotalJoist line after I make this, comment. It's great having a whole package you can offer to a homeowner or developer when it comes to a concrete envelope, where you're able to get a 2-hour fire rating, 3-hour fire rating over, just operating on, just trying to sell a wall system, or, you're able to utilize two things, the walls and the floors, and have one guy do the installation on it. And it seems, to be going that way on the installs. So it's great.
So yeah, it's, I'm actually, I was just pulling it up and I'm like looking at and anybody, all of this stuff too is going to be listed in our show notes. I want to make sure everybody kind of gets, able to find all that stuff, because you guys have a ton of great information on the internet. That's one thing you guys have always been very informative about what it is, very visual to be able to see. So when people are trying to ask about these systems and what they can do, whether it be, all the different products that you guys carry. And this is for me, I was telling you before we started recording, I'm like, the kind of exciting part is when I get some of these that I'm not as familiar with, because I'm learning right along with the listeners. You and I have known each other for quite a while, and just through the ICF industry and through World of Concrete and different things, you guys have always been a big supporter of the ICF Builder Awards. So you guys are always there. We get to see you there every year. But I really haven't done a lot of this in my own construction, so this has been pretty exciting. We've had a couple projects that got close that we were looking at doing, and so really kind of going into the different options that you guys have for people is really, going to be great for everybody, including myself, to kind of hear what the options are.
Yeah, it's great. And the TotalJoist line is a great product too as well. It seems like a lot of people, if they're going to do concrete walls, they're going to want a concrete floor as well. But TotalJoist is just a cold rolled steel version of a TGI.
Right.
Essentially. And what's nice about both joist lines is that they have access holes to run mechanical and plumbing or whatever you might need. So the 12-inch joist, will have an opening for a 6-inch duct run. The TotalJoist is a bottom core bearing joist. It's can span 30% farther than a TGI. And we're at 2 foot on center spacings or less, similar to like a wood floor joist system. What's great about both floor systems, though, we have vibration control designed in the floor system. So we're L over, 480 most times to give that solid feeling floor that customers really like.
Well, Matt, where do you guys, this may be jumping ahead a little bit, but where do you guys manufacture, and is there any limitations on where you're shipping to right now?
So we're manufacturing the composite joist and total joist in right outside of Toronto. It's Princeton, Ontario.
Yeah, so for people that are used to just seeing that the wood joists all the time, right? And just for a standard floor, like looking where we're putting TG, we're just going to put OSB over the top of it. What are the major benefits of like the metal, other than just the span, being able to go the longer spans and stuff? Where are we aligning, like price wise and availability? It sounds like is good. So, I mean, is there anything that people need to be thinking about if they're wanting to make that change to a total joist?
When people ask me that question, I compare it to similar products. So when you're looking at the composite system, I look at a manufactured floor truss with 1.8" deck with lightweight concrete on top of it. If the square footage pencils out right, where we're able to maximize that truckload efficiency, or where we're getting anywhere to 2,000 to 3,000 square foot or more, we're going to be similar in price per square foot that a wood floor would have with lightweight concrete on it. But the problem with lightweight concrete on a wood floor, you're still going to have the squeaks and pops,
right?
And, the waviness, the two dissimilar surfaces working constantly against one another. So that's where we're looking at on the price per square foot. We're going to be in line with that, wood floor joist with the lightweight concrete. The biggest thing that I've always seen is that the freight, tends to be a driver, being in Toronto, having to come all the way over to the West Coast. So when I look at projects, they have to really warrant the square footage to pencil in the freight cost to get it here. East Coast, we're seeing the same price or less. With the total joist line, we're looking at shallower profiles and spanning 30% farther. So we're eliminating joists compared to a TGI joist, and we're able to span a lot further. And with that shallower profile, it starts penciling out on that end as well.
Well, and that's huge. I mean, and for people, kind of the layman terms thinking about it, some of the most expensive lumber in the entire house are beams, and whether that be a metal beam or it be a wood beam or a glue lamp, when you can eliminate some of that is a huge way to save money in the house, is to get rid of some of those huge beams they're going through. Not to mention, as Heather has had to deal with the design factor of that, like being able to
and being able, like, not having to have super tall floor joists going up, so you're limited on height, and people want to go with a 10-foot tall basement and a 10-foot
and they don't want to see it, they want a flat
Yeah.
roof, or they want this, so I mean, having to be able to design around it makes all the difference in the world. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think people look at these options of even lumber versus a metal in these homes. I think when we get into people that are into ICF, there's places for wood. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's places to use wood in construction. And I think the people are, a lot of times when you're looking at someone that's looking at alternative wood, or alternatives to wood for the exterior, they like to look into these alternatives for any of the wood products, like the floor joists and stuff like that, where I think this is what makes so much sense.
Well, the education is a big thing, and I totally agree with you on that. I mean, you've been doing this a lot of years, just like I have. And I don't mind paying for quality,
right,
even if the shipping cost is going to be there. I mean, there comes a point where, we're not going to be the cheapest floor system out there, but we're going to be the best floor system out there. The vibration controlled floors, where you don't have that bounce in the floor when people are walking over the joists. It's solid feeling. I mean, if you had a basement, no one would know you'd have a basement until they ran in the stairs. It's like, right, where those stairs go to. Yeah. That's how good the floors feel.
Yeah. Yeah. If they can't feel the bounce or the move, that's the benefit to it. Do you guys, so when someone's working with you guys, first of all, do you guys do like the engineering and stuff? Is it the same as regular floor joist? Is it something that they need to be working with you guys or with their engineer to make changes to?
So we have engineers in-house that review the drawings and make sure that everything on the floor side of things is calculated out right. The engineer of record, if you have to have an engineer of record, would have to be the one that would stamp the final set of drawings.
Right.
We do have shop drawings similar to like a truss design package that you would get with the standard floor manufacturer joists. So all that comes out. The only thing that we don't design for would be the bar coming out of the walls into the slab, as well as the steel beam sizes. We've been doing this for a lot of years, and a lot of guys will design a beam in, and it's not that the beam will fail. It's more on the vibration side of it. So we'll say, hey, you need to up this beam from a 12 to a 14, and to eliminate the vibration, and not on a structural side, but just for vibration to break up that tuning fork effect.
Yeah, because you guys are, and that's where, like I said, I tell everybody all the time, anytime you're looking at a product that you're, a new product, anything that's, or an alternative product, you're looking at a better product, all that stuff, having that communication way up front with people is huge. That's why we preach all the time about design. We had Robert Klob on, and he talked about that on his episode. We have a design and drafting company. The earlier you get into the process with your suppliers, your designers, everybody, your engineers, everybody's on board with what you're doing, the better. It's the ones that we all don't like as reps is when we get the call and people are like, oh, hey, we're doing this right now, and the inspector stopped us and we didn't tell anybody we were doing this. And you're like trying to scramble to get information out to people to get it approved or whatever because they haven't seen it. Because it's unfortunately, if people haven't seen something, and that's how what we dealt with ICF for years has been, if you don't see it, then people all of a sudden automatically there's a flag goes up and the inspector stops the whole thing, and you got to kind of backtrack. So it's super important that they're working with you guys, and you've always been awesome to work with when we've had questions about stuff or sent stuff over to you. You've always been right on top of it. So, the one thing I would say is make sure if you're interested in this, get ahead of it and start getting that information before you start wrapping it into the project.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I deal with that on a daily basis. I'm sure you do too. You want to be there from the get-go, from the start, because, when engineers look at span tables, they look at, rebar, in the wall and everything else, and they design it towards what they see. Well, like with our floor, we have two different gauges. So we have a 14 and 16 gauge joist. And what we always play the material side game. So if we tightened up our spacing in a certain area that would take 48-inch joists at a thicker gauge, or 36-inch on center joists at lighter gauge, more than likely that lighter gauge, just on the steel cost, will be less expensive than what the heavier gauge of 48 would be. Another thing that we always look at too is when we're running that joist machine, let's say a designer will come in and design like 4 different joist sizes, like they would with a TGI or whatever wood truss, scenario. Well, it's cheaper for us on keeping that machine running at that same joist size throughout. So if we have, someone that's wanting to do multiple joist sizes, we try to keep it to 2, because if we had like 4 in there, that's 4 different times of shutting down that machine, 4 different joist sizes, to run and everything else. So there's material costs and time that's involved, and labor just to shut the machine down, pull all the rollers out, retool it, and get it up and going again for the next joist size.
Do you got one thing too, you touched on a little bit, but so for our listeners that are asking, like if they want to get into this, where does it start? Should they start the conversation with you? Should they, is there a dealer network that they should be going through? Is it something that they buy direct? Is there something, there's a lumberyard? Where's the, where do they actually get the product from? What's the best way to get that product?
Well, I mean, they can call, iSpan direct. I handle the Southwest, and I've done projects all over the country just with the ICF network that we all are a part of. Guys like yourself will call me up and it's like, hey, I got a project in South Carolina. And if they don't have someone there up until Bailey taking over and it doesn't seem like it's going to be changing much, that, it's like, Matt, just work it, because, ICF, what to do and how to do it. So there's only been 1 or 2 times where I haven't been able to work a job, but they've been giving me free reign to work wherever, I can bring jobs into.
Perfect. So you just heard it. He just told everybody, all the listeners, to call him directly. Just call Matt whenever you want. late at night, whenever, weekends, you just call Matt anytime with anything, and he can cover it.
What I heard him say is start with them, start with their website, reach out, contact them. They will help you. If there's somebody in your area, they will direct you to the person that you need to be talking to.
Oh, whatever.
Guys like Trevor will call me and say, "Hey, Matt, can you work this job for me?"
Yeah, and I'll try to look smart, and then I run and call Matt real fast and get the real information and go back and try to sound smart when I send it back over to them. So, no, I think that's good.
I want to take a step back real quick. Matt, how did you get into this? Like, give me a little background on your story.
Oh, geez. So my family had a trucking business in Minot, North Dakota, of all places. And during the summer, 92, 93, 94, there was a basement builder in Minot, North Dakota that we were hauling the Blue Max for, and then it was ARCs afterwards out of Canada for this basement installer in Minot, North Dakota, of all places. And graduated college, and long story short, and came down here to Phoenix and looking for new opportunities after, trying to run a trucking company for a couple of years down here. And Dad's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know, probably sell insurance or whatever it might be. And, he's like, well, how about, sell ICFs and rep ICFs? I'm like, what's an ICF of all things? He's like, that block I made you on, that hollow block that I made you unload every summer? I'm like, yeah, that styrofoam stuff. He's like, yeah. So, long story short, we contacted, the couple manufacturers, and I got set up as dealers. And one of the things that one manufacturer wanted me to have was 50 sets of ICF bracing, and the ICF bracing, it turned into a very good side project. I have 2 locations now, one in Phoenix and one in Oklahoma City, where I rent out equipment, through, the DFW market all the way up to Tulsa, in Phoenix, Southern Cal, New Mexico. I'm kind of all over the place with that. And, in 2008, 2009, when the market kind of went south, there wasn't a lot of ICF work. So I decided to discontinue the block lines and focus mainly on equipment rental and ICF support for the whole industry. So I turned into Distributor to basically, once you buy your block, I'm the Home Depot of ICF supply. You come rent the braces, you can get the glues, glue guns, all the accessories, ladders, concrete vibrators, whatever you might need to build your project. And in 2016, I had a guy that was in getting braces, and he had a competitor's bar joist composite floor system spec'd in his project. And, just knowing what it was and seeing all the plans I've seen over the years, iSpan was the first issue, was in their builder magazine. And I showed it to him. I said, hey, this is the new age composite floor system. He's like, oh, that's really cool. It was the first time that they ever had an ad in that magazine. And 2 weeks later, he goes, hey, Matt, can you get me a quote for that floor system? I'm like, yeah, I don't see why not. So, everyone thought I was nuts. I called up the iSpan. I'm like, hey, I think I got a job for you guys down here in Phoenix, Arizona, but I need it here in 30 days. They're like, oh, okay, sure. So I sent him a check, not knowing that if I was going to get my money or not out of the deal.
A lot of faith.
A lot of faith. And, long story short, got the job and got it done 30 days later. And I met with the owner, Mike Strickland, at the World of Concrete that year, 2016. And he loved my approach. And at the time, he wasn't planning on setting up anyone that was in the ICF industry as dealers, but he, was just busy working on the metal frame guys. But he loved my approach, and one thing led to another, and I handled the Southwest, and, it's, what I do now.
I love it. This is the thing is this is what I call ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. You're just like, I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I think it's going to work, and let's just go do it. We'll figure it out. So I love it.
Yeah. We end up with a lot of companies that way, and a lot of trailers and dumpster rentals and all kinds of stuff, because we're like, oh, well, can't find anybody. Let's just do it ourselves. So
yeah,
we'll just
pretty
do
much.
it. And, yeah.
That's what Matt did too.
I grew up holding a hammer. My dad was frugal, let's just put it that way. And we, remodeled the farmhouse a couple of different times, adding, 1,800 square feet to when we're all said and done, about a little over 5,000 square feet of living space, that farmhouse. And I, from 12 on, I was, hitting a hammer, the nail to a hammer, and then, working on trucks. So lots of smashed fingers over the years, but things have out in the end.
It sounds like it teaches you a pretty good work ethic. I think that a lot of us grew up that way, that are in the business and still being successful in the business. We have that work ethic, and that's where we get a little frustrated sometimes with the younger people that we try to bring in that still don't work as hard as us old guys do trying to. And I'm way older than you, but you get these young kids that just don't work as hard just because they haven't been out there getting their fingers smashed and doing things. But we know that. We spent some time in Minot, North Dakota.
We did, yeah. My daughter and son-in-law were at the base there for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, something like that.
Spent some holidays in Minot, and the best time to be in Minot around Christmas and Thanksgiving, like the real best time to be in Minot, North Dakota.
Yeah.
Snow there at all?
No, and the wind never blows, so it's really nice. It's very, I almost call it tropical.
Yes. All right. Well, let's move into our 3 questions that we ask every one of our guests on the show. And today I'm going to ask you, the first one is, can you tell us of a memorable experience with this product line?
3 come to my mind, would be the first job that I actually sold was a 4-story house on Lake Travis. It was actually on the front cover of the ICF Builder magazine. It was actually, the block was out of Amvik, Matt Knorr, out of ICF Constructors down in the Houston area, Katy, Texas. He was the installer. And we've done quite a few projects with Matt over the course of the last, 5-6 years. He really loves the floor system. Second project would be a hotel that I was able to flip. It was an ICF hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. It had Epicor deck on it. And Epicor is a product that needs to be shored, similar to, a standard shored and poured system. So the GC fell in love with the iSpan product because we didn't have to be shored. I mean, we could set all the joists, set the deck, pour it, and it turned out great. Great project for us. First one in the States that was ICF and iSpan. Got quite a few more that are designed, just waiting to get going this summer. Hopefully, if things go right, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we'll have a few more to showcase as well. And the third one would be a basement here in Phoenix. It's actually 28 feet deep.
Wow.
And it was 12-inch ICF core, 2 number 10s every 8 inches on center.
Oh my gosh.
We had to use, for verticals, we had to use a knockdown form to put it together because that bar was just too heavy to lift, and tie. So, to lift and just drop down the form. So they basically build the grid, and then you built the ICF around the forms themselves.
Oh, wow.
So that was a unique project, a basketball court for his kids. So it was cool one to be a part of.
That's super cool. Wow. I love that one. That's cool. All right. The next question then, and you've kind of already covered this, but the more formal here. Why should our listeners use your products?
Well, over standard bar joists, a couple different things. We're going to have that vibration controlled floor. You're not going to have that bounce. If you've ever went to a mall and you're on the second floor just waiting outside and people are walking by, you feel that vibration in the floor. It's the same thing like if you're going over a bridge and you're stopped, you feel the cars drive by or whatever it might be. If you're walking, we don't have that in our floor system, and bar joist is notorious for that, to have that bounce in that floor. We're designing over 480. A lot of our competitors that have similar systems are 360 and even 300. So their design calcs aren't as good as what ours are. We have the ICC approvals, and the UL ratings and the STC ratings, which a lot of the companies don't have. We're up to date with all our codes, when it comes to the building code, the international building code systems. And then the new line that I'm starting to rep, that is part of Bailey Metal Group, is called ComSlab. To me, it's a game changer when it comes to multi-story construction. we're able to span upwards of 15 feet with no shoring needed. We're 50% plus lighter than a standard short and port system. So we utilize less concrete than even like a styrofoam deck system would have. It spans up to 32 feet, which is really nice. I just actually received a quote back for a hotel in, where was it at now? Well, it doesn't matter, but we were under that 15-foot threshold throughout the way it was lined out. So that whole hotel has no shoring involved, and it came in at $6 a square foot.
Wow.
For the material. So when we're looking at multi-story scenarios, it is a game changer in my recommendations. Shallower profile, so we're able to do multiple stories compared to a bar joist scenario where you have, like with iSpan or any of the other products, if you have a 16-inch joist with 3 inches of topping, you're with sheetrock and everything else, you're at over 20 inches, and we're at 12 inches or less with the ComSlab.
Right. Which every floor, when you're looking at a multi-floor building, every floor you're not going to, taking it up a foot, and that you've got certain limitations on how high you can take things. And if you're taking a foot out every floor, it could be huge. It's you talk about like the flex, of some of those joists, the older ones. My buddy was buying a commercial building, and I drive by it all the time. Every time I pointed it out to Heather because it's still one of the funniest stories. Like, we go to this building, he calls me, he's super stoked about it. He's going to move his offices there. He's like, this place is awesome. I love that this is cool Art Deco looking building, and you need to come check it out. So we go down there and check it out. And he's down there, and he's only been in there with the realtor, who's a little, 100-pound, 5-foot tall lady. I walk in there as a 6'2", 270-pound dude. I come walking on there, and all of a sudden he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, walk again. And I walk, and he's like, I can feel the floor moving when you're walking. So just to be a smart, I just jump up, slam down, and I thought he was going to scream out the window. Like, he literally about bounced him off the floor, and he comes running over. He's like, we're not buying this building. We are not buying this building. And they went in and checked it out, and they basically had like old, steel, the old school steel floor joint beams in it. And it was, you could probably do a backflip on that thing because it was bouncing so hard. So it does make a difference to get the right one. It's
just cushion. It's just,
Yeah. It was like a wrestling man. It's like you see WWF, like wrestling, like they could bounce out, or like gymnasts doing floor exercises. That would have been great for a gymnast place, but. So the last question I think is cool, because I love it when I got a guy with this much, as much experience as you have and stuff in this industry. You're at all the events, you're hearing everything that's happening out there. You're working with a company, newly acquired with new products. So you've got probably really good pulse on this question, but what are you excited about in the future? And I'll give you rein to do a couple if you think of a few, but pertaining to the ICF industry, pertaining to your product, maybe in the ICF industry, what are you seeing out there that you're excited about?
It's the nature of the beast. With stricter building codes, everything is really pushing more towards, concrete construction in general, and I'm starting to see more of that in the multifamily type projects. I've seen where they're wanting to provide a better rent own or rental type property where you'll have client retention. Same thing I see with hotels, where people want to stay at an ICF hotel. They don't know it's an ICF hotel. They just know that, hey, I got a good night's sleep and it's quiet. And, you can only really do that with concrete. Mm-hmm. And, I see a lot more projects coming my ways than I would have seen 10 years ago, because people are starting to drive it. They don't know why they're driving it, but, developers and owners are seeing a pattern with different properties on, client retention, more rents, everything else, people staying in buildings longer. I've seen a lot of projects here in the Southwest that there's a panelized ICF wall system that's getting manufactured here in the Tempe market. They've done upwards of 3,000 rental units that for developers here in the Phoenix market, where they're all single story, and the clients don't know why they love the houses or the rental units, but they're concrete, and that's the reason why.
Dude, it's such a great answer. We said we recorded a little bit earlier. We actually had Alfonso in from Fox Block, and he was talking about training and stuff like that. And I asked him obviously everybody gets the same questions. And that was one of his things he was excited about. He says, the codes are coming to us. Literally the codes are coming to better construction. They're looking at alternatives, better alternatives, better construction. So, we've been preaching it for a long time, whether it be the higher end floor systems or the higher end ICF walls, doing a better build for years. And now it's being forced on people to do the better build. So it's kind of coming back to us a little bit, boomeranging back to us. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, exactly right. And what's nice is that, when you're able to use a system like iSpan or ComSlab with ICF and you're giving that homeowner or developer a full package, like we talked about before, a complete building envelope that's fire rated assembly, so it's great, moving forward. I'm looking forward to the future, even though the things are kind of slowing down a little bit in the last few months, but we're starting to see more and more down the pipeline when it comes to higher end custom homes. People that are wanting different, better building products, as well as multifamily, multi-story type projects.
So quality over quantity right now is what I'm seeing. We're seeing that we maybe not be getting the people that were super price conscious, or maybe we're financing a lot of stuff where the interest rates are going to affect them. But those cash customers, those second home customers, the people that are seeing opportunities and, that see opportunity when other people aren't, will continue to grow. So that's always treated us well. One of the reasons I've loved being an ICF, it's been fairly recession proof in some of those ways. It slows down, but a lot of times the people that have the money to do these kind of projects will usually continue going and even get a little bit bigger in those times. So it's pretty good for all of us. But
I think right now we're just ramping up for our season. So it went, we typically slow down in the winter, and that's when we take our vacations and, do a bunch of our planning for the year. And now the snow is melting and, we're ready.
Matt doesn't know what winter is.
He doesn't. I know.
He's like, what's winter? I've never.
I'm sure he's seen it on the internet.
He's like, snow. That's snow. I've seen that white stuff on TV.
He was in
a lot of years since I've had to deal with it on a daily basis.
He's having minot flashbacks when you said winter. He's like, Well, let's get it wrapped up here and get you back and selling some product. What is the best way for people to just check out your product? Obviously, I'll link your website in the show notes so they can get to it. Are you guys on any of the social medias that they can go look at?
iSpan's got an Instagram page. I have an Instagram page. Mine's Building ICF, at Building ICF is what my handle is for Instagram. I need to do better at posting things. I'll try to get some more stuff up there, but I do have pictures for, different projects that I've been a part of. It's that 28-foot basement, really cool project. If people are interested in seeing that as well.
I'm going to go check it out.
Cool. Yeah. It's easy to remember. And that's the one thing we laugh. We say we're like-minded people considered, and the listeners always hear us tagging Build With ICF, and you've got Building ICF. So that's pretty easy to if you can find ours, you can find his, and find his, you can find ours. It's pretty simple. Yeah. So I'll tag all that in there. I'll put any contact information that you feel good with me putting on there. I'll throw in there too. So if you're listening to this, we'll get you connected with Matt so that he can get you set up with all this product. But thank you again for coming on and just enlightening us to, like I said, this is a lot of cool stuff that, we need to be looking at more and putting into our products. And I know now we're getting more educated. Now we know where we can utilize Matt more and even our projects. But I mean, anybody out there listening, it's all about going and getting that information. We're all out here to give you the information and educate you on the products. Matt's, no different. So we'll get you the information you need. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on the show with us and get this done. And we will continue to keep seeing you around the shows and kicking your business your way. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And then for our listeners, continue sharing the show. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials at Build With ICF. And if you have a question, you can go to our website, buildwithicf.com. There's a podcast page, and we've got a Q&A or for our questions from our listeners for our episodes there. And you can also send us an email, info@buildwithicf.com.
Yep. Everybody's been doing great. Continue to share the show. This is what I mean, this is the only way we get our word out is by sharing the show. We don't run ads and do any of that stuff. So please share it. If you hear of anybody that's got any questions about ICF that they're curious about, if they're thinking about it, that's why we do this podcast, is to give them that information. Not to mention we'll actually do episodes. We're going to try to do probably one a month, I think, is where we're going to be at for doing listener questions episode. We just did one this week. It turned out really good. People have been getting a lot of good feedback on that. So I think we're going to continue to do that in future month by month kind of basis. So send us the questions. You'll hear your question on the show. If you didn't hear your question on the last show, I'm sorry, we only got through about half of them. So
Not even that.
We'll get it. So anyways, thank everybody for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.